Hello everyone, it's Mr. Zong back with the videos. Now, in this lesson, I'm going to go through circles, okay? So, circles, they also have a general equation that can be represented, and the equation is represented by this. Now, before I go into the equation, I can show you how this equation is derived. So, the equation of a circle can be derived using coordinate geometry, which is something you've learned. We can let P be a point on the circle. So P can be a point on the circumference of the circle, and we can use the point X, Y to represent this. And the center of the circle, we can let that be H, K. Now to find the distance of AP, we can use the distance formula, where we take the square root of the difference of the two X values, so X minus H squared, plus the difference of the two Y values, Y coordinates squared, okay? So AP is equal to the square root of X minus H squared plus Y minus K squared. And essentially, we know that AP is the radius of the circle. So we can just say AP is equal to R. By taking the square root of, by taking the square of both sides, so square both sides, we arrive at this, okay? So if we square the left-hand side, we get rid of the square root sign. If we square the right side, we get the R squared. So that's how you get the equation of a circle. Now, this is just showing you how to get the equation. All right, this is just the derivation part. It's not the important part. The important part is that you recognize what the equation of a circle looks like. And it says here. So make sure you understand this. The equation for a circle that has center H, K, and radius is given by the equation X minus H squared plus Y minus K squared is equal to R squared. So let's take an example of a circle that has a center at the origin. In other words, this is the H value and this is the K value, okay? So we can just write this as X minus 0 squared because H is 0 in this case. All right, H is the X coordinate of the point and K is the Y coordinate of the point. So X minus 0 squared. So this 0 is referring to this 0 here. And this 0 is referring to the 0 there, right? So X minus 0 squared plus Y minus 0 squared is equal to R squared. We've used this formula. And if we simplify this, X minus 0, well, that's just X. So X squared plus Y squared gives you R squared. And that's the equation of a circle with radius of R, okay? And as you can see from this diagram, as you can see, this is also applying Pythagoras' theorem to this triangle. X squared plus Y squared gives you R squared. And this is the coordinate X, Y. Now, in the exam, they can ask you to sketch circles. And before you sketch, it's usually a good idea to find the equation of a circle. So if you still remember the formula, it's X minus H squared plus Y minus K squared is equal to R squared. So every circle equation will have three variables. There's the X coordinate, the Y coordinate, and the radius. So in this case, H is 0, right? And K is 0. So we can write this as X minus 0 squared plus Y minus 0 squared, because the Y coordinate is also 0, is equal to 3 squared, right? And we can simplify this. I'm just going to simplify it here, okay? So that becomes 3x squared plus y squared equals to 9. Okay, now I assume you know how to draw a circle where the center is 0, 0, so this is the center, and the radius of 3. So to draw that, you basically just have to draw a circle with radius 3 with the center at the origin. So just draw like this. There we go. So this is a circle where the radius is 3 and the center is at 0, 0. So that's how you draw it. And when you draw it, make sure you label some key points. So this is 3. This y-intercept is also 3. This is also 3. Sorry, this is minus 3. And this is minus 3. Alright. Now, I'm going to go through another example. Okay, so as you can see, the equation of a circle where the origin is 0, 0, you can just write it like this. So you don't actually need to write the minus 0 part. I just did that to help you understand. So we can go straight to this formula. So then the center, if the center is 0, 0, then you can say the equation is x squared plus y squared is equal to the radius squared. Now in this case, the radius is the square root of 2. So what's the square root of 2 squared? Well, that will just give you 2, right? So then this is equal to 2. Okay, so this 2 is obtained from squaring the square root of 2. Okay. Now to draw this circle, it's also quite straightforward. Just find radius of 2, center at the origin. There we go. And make sure you didn't use my drawing function. There we go. Alright, so, and make sure you label the points. So, x-intercept 2 and minus 2. Y-intercept of 2 and minus 2. Okay, so far this should be quite clear. Now I'm going to go through some more complicated examples. Okay, so make sure you pay attention carefully here. Now this is center 2, 3, right? So if you still remember, the equation of a circle is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals to r squared. So in this case, the 2 is the h, 3 is the k, and this 2 is the r. Okay, so you can write this as x minus h. So in this case, the h is 2. Minus 2 squared plus y minus 3 squared and that's equal to r squared. So 2 squared is what? 4. So there you have it. That's the equation of the circle. Now you have to draw it. So drawing this is going to be a little more tricky because the center is not at the origin anymore. But don't be scared. It's not too bad. Alright, so we know that the center is going to be 2, 3. So I'm just going to label the center here. And the radius is 2, right? So if the radius is 2, that means we're going to have a circle that's like this. Okay, this is not a good drawing. I'll draw again. Okay, this is a bit better. Now, once you draw the circle, you have to label the key points, okay? So to label the key points, just make sure you label the boundaries of the circle. So the boundaries include this point. This is the point 5. That's the top of the circle, and then you have to label that point. This is 4. And you have to label this point, because this is the bottom of the circle, which is 1. Once you label the key points, then you're good to go. Alright, so that's that. Now, let's move on to the next example. This example is kind of the same thing, but the only difference is you have a minus this time, alright? So you can just label this as H, this as K, this is R, okay? So, we can just do the same thing. So we can do X minus H squared, so X. Now, when you have minus 10, that's the same as x plus 10, right? X minus 10 is x plus 10. So I'm just going to write x plus 10 squared plus, now this is going to be y minus minus 4, which is, as you should know, two negatives becomes a positive. So, however, two wrongs do not make a right. Okay, and the radius is 3. So remember, always square the radius. Okay, so a common mistake for a lot of students is they just write 3 here. Now that would be incorrect. You need to square the 3, so which is 9. So do not make that mistake. Alright, now you have to plot the circle, so that's just the annoying part, if anything. So the center is going to be minus 10 and 4. So that's going to be, find minus 10. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, tell you what, I'm going to just assume each unit is negative 2 instead of negative 10, okay? So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Because else I wouldn't have space to draw the circle. Okay, and so this will be minus 4 because each unit, now I'm assuming that each unit is 2 units. And the radius is 3. Okay, so time to draw a circle. Now, radius of 3. Now, in this case, if each of these units represents 2, so then it's going to be 1.5, right? So 1.5 will look something like this. Okay, something like this, okay? Alright, now we have to label the key values. So, what's going to be this point? Well, the radius is 3, so then you just have to add 3 to this number. So, don't have space here to write it, but this is minus 10. This will be minus 7 because the radius of the circle is 3 units, right? So you just have to add 3 to the minus 10 to get the minus 7. And here will be, I don't have space here, but this will be minus 13. And here, well, what will this be? This will be minus 7, right? Because it's 3 units away from the origin. And then there's this point here, that's the top of the circle, which is minus 1. Because minus 4 plus 3 gives you minus 1. So now I've labeled all the points. And that should be all. Okay. Alright, so now they can also ask you to find the center and radius of the following circles, and that's usually quite easy if they've given to you in this nice looking form. So as you know, if there's no minus like this, then you know that, so if the equation looks something like x squared plus y squared equals something, you know that the center is going to be the origin. So the origin. And radius, so is the radius 25? No, the radius is the square root of 25, if you still recall. R squared. Right. So you're going to square root the 25, so you get 5. Now for this one, it's the same story, so there's no dramas. Center is 0 and 0 because it's x squared and y squared. And the radius is the square root of 12. Okay. Now, if you want to be extra correct, you can simplify this as you've learned from the square roots, how to simplify square roots. So that would be 2 root 3. Okay. Alright, now let's move on to these examples. Now, these are all quite straightforward. So as you can see, x minus h plus y minus k. So this is the h, this is the k. So then the center is 5, 3. So I use the letter C for center, so you can as well. You don't need to write the full word. Now the radius is the square root of 100, so that's what? 10. Now here, the center. Now remember, it's x minus h, right? So in this case, it will be x minus 1, because this is x plus 1, right? So then this is the h. Okay, so the center would be minus 1. So another way to think of the center is, what value do I need to substitute for x in order for this thing to become a 0? So if x was minus 1, then the whole value inside the bracket would be 0. So that's another way to think about it. Okay. So what value do I have to substitute for x in order for this to become 0? In order for this expression to be 0, x has to be 5. So then the center is 5. Right? So to me, that's an easier way. So you can substitute x equals minus 1 here, and you can substitute y equals minus 4 here, in order for these expressions to be 0. Right? So the center is minus 1 and minus 4. And the radius is equal to the square root of 49, which is 7. Right, so hopefully that's kind of makes sense. Alright, so now I'm going to move on to the slightly more challenging part, and that's the part that a lot of students do not like. Every time they see completing the square, they get a headache. So I'm just going to go through it once again. So sometimes they can give you an expression of a circle that looks something like this, and it's not in the neat way that's presented above. So when it comes to these situations, what you need to do is you need to write this expression into something that looks like this, and then find the center. And that's where completing the square comes in. Yes, completing the square. So, if you still recall from last term, to complete the square, you need to find a term that you need to add onto this in order to factorize. Okay. So what you can do is you can split this up into x squared plus 4x, and you can split this up into y squared minus 8y. Okay, so the question asks you, what do you need to add to x squared plus 4x such that you can factorize into something like this, x plus 2 squared. So if you recall, you have to halve the coefficient of x. So half of 4 is 2, squared is 4. Right, so you have to add 4 here. This 4 will go here. And same with this. To complete the square, you have to take the half of the coefficient, which is minus 8. Half of minus 8 is minus 4. Squared is 16. So this 16 will need to go here. So if you don't remember you're completing the square, I would strongly recommend you go over that topic, as it is a topic that people tend to forget very easily. Okay, so once you found out the number that you need to add to these expressions, so you have to add the 4 to here and 6 to here. Now if you add these two numbers to the right hand side of the equation, as you can see this is an equation, you also have to add these numbers to the right hand side. Okay. And once you do that, you factorize this term, which is x plus 2 squared. Then you factorize this, which is y minus 4 squared, and you get the sum of this. Now, what I explained just then, there's probably a lot of things involved. So I'm just going to do a question, and hopefully it will make a lot of sense to you, because in here the answers are already kind of given to you, so it might not be as clear. So I'll just go through this example first. Okay, so it says find the center and radius of the following circles, and they purposely give you in this ugly looking form so that you are forced to use completing the square. So let's get started. So the first step when it comes to doing these questions is I would move the number to the right hand side to start off. Okay, so you have x squared minus 2x plus y squared minus 4y is equal to 4. Now the next step is to complete the square. Okay, so to complete the square, we can write this as x squared minus 2x. Now before we write the y square, we have to complete the square. So we have to find a number which is half of minus 2 squares. So what is this number? And I got this minus 2 from the minus 2 here. So this is minus 1 squared, which is 1. So I have to add 1 to the left hand side, plus y squared minus 4y. Now what do I need to add here? So you have to take half of the minus 4 and square it. So what does that become? So this becomes minus 2 squared, which is 4, right? Equals to, now because we added 1 and 4 to the right hand side, we added 1 and 4 to the left hand side of the equation, we have to add 1 and 4 to the right hand side. So make sure you remember this, because a lot of students, they forget to add the numbers they added to the left hand side. So they will just write 4 and forget about this. Okay, so now let's factorize this. So how do you factorize x squared minus 2x plus 1? Okay, so just think of what is half of minus 2. Half of minus 2 is minus 1. So I can write this as x minus 1 all squared. How do you factorize the next one? So next one is y squared minus 4y. So what's half of minus 4? Minus 2. So we can just write this as y minus 2 squared. And what's this equal to? Take the sum of these three numbers. So hopefully you can do that with our calculator. 9. Now this equation is written in this nice, neat looking form. We can find the center and the radius. So the center, remember, so what I said earlier, find the number that will make this whole thing 0. So x equals to 1. Find the number that makes this thing 0, so 2. So the center is 1, 2. And the radius is equal to, well, the radius is the square root of 9, so which is 3. So do not write 9 here. Okay. There's another example. Okay, so now this example, they purposely try to trick you by putting the x's all over the place. So we need to tidy this equation up. Okay, so I'm going to write this as x squared. So put the x's together and put the y's together. Plus 6x plus y squared. And make sure that the squared is in front of the non-squared term. Minus 2y. Now, like I said before, you can move this number to the right hand side. So if I take away 6 from both sides, I get minus 6. So make sure you write this in the first step. Just tidy it up before you do anything. Now you complete the square. So you have x squared plus 6x. So what do you need to add to here? So what is half of 6 squared? Well, you should know this. This is just 3 squared, right? So plus 9. Plus y squared minus 2y. What do I need to add here? So we just take the half of minus 2, square it. Remember, no matter what number, when you square it, it should be positive. So I do not want to see any negative numbers being written. Half of minus 2 is minus 1. Minus 1 squared is 1. Equals to minus 6. Now, remember the part that I said you should not forget? Because we added a 9 and a 1 to the left hand side of the equation, we have to add them to the right hand side, because that is fair. Okay, now we factorize. So remember how I said earlier, to factorize this, just take half of the 6, so x plus 3. Square it. Plus, now to factorize this term out, so this corresponds to the factorization of this. Now I have to factorize this. So this will be, what's half of minus 2? Minus 1. So y minus 1 squared is equal to minus 6 plus 9 is 3. 3 plus 1 is 4. Hey, we got a perfect square number, so that's good. So to find the center, you need to find the value that you sub in for x here to make the whole thing 0. So minus 3, because minus 3 plus 3 gives you 0. Find the number here that gives this whole thing 0, so 1. And what's the radius? So is the radius 4? No, it's the square root of 4. Don't get fooled. Okay. Alright, so now we've come across a slightly harder example, and the reason this is a hard example is because you see the x squared, there's a number in front of the x squared. So this is non-monic, okay, as you can see, non-monic. Non-monic is always a headache for a lot of students. So I'm going to try and address that issue. Alright, so just do what we do best. Tidy it up. So you have 4x squared minus 16x. So put the x's together because they want to be together. And then put the y's together. Plus 4y squared minus 24y. And move the number to the right because that's where he belongs. He doesn't belong on the left hand side. Okay, so I've tidied it up slightly. Now it needs to be tidied up even more because there's a number in front of the x squared. We want, in order to complete the square, remember, the coefficient of x squared, in other words, the number in front of the x squared has to be a 1. So how do you get rid of the 4? Well, we also notice that the number in front of the y squared is also 4. So what we can do is we can divide everything by 4. Okay, to get rid of so to make the equation a monic one. So I'm just going to divide everything by 4. Okay, so this whole left hand side got to divide by 4. And if we divide the left hand side by 4, we ought to divide the right hand side by 4 as well. Okay, let's get started. So 4x squared divided by 4 is x squared. 16x divided by 4, or minus 16x, is minus 4x. 4y squared divided by 4 is y squared. 24y divided by 4 is minus 6y. Is equal to, this is just minus 51 over 4. So I'm just going to leave it like this because it can't be simplified. So they've given us a number that's not divisible by 4 on purpose. Alright, now time to complete the square. So x squared minus 4x. So what do we need to add here? So minus 4 divided by 2 squared. So what is this? This is 4 plus y squared minus 6y. What do we need to add here? So what is half of minus 6 squared? Now the reason I'm doing my working out here is because I don't want to write a whole line where I write this and simplify it. So as you can see, I'm trying to save time here. So minus 6 divided by 2 is minus 3. Squared is 9. And that's equal to minus 51 over 4. Now remember, what we do to the left side, we got to do to the right side. So we added this 4 and 9. So we got to add the 4 and the 9 here. Okay, time to factorize. So we have, what's half of minus 4? Minus 2. Plus, what's half of minus 6? Minus 3. So we write y minus 3. And what is this equal to? So I'm just going to get my calculator here because I can't do this in my head. So this should give you, oh, it's a quarter. How nice. Okay, so now we can write the center. The center is, so find the number that makes this 0, so 2. Find the number that makes this 0, 3. And what's the radius? Radius is a square root of 1 on 4, which is 1 on 2. So normally, when you get a nice round number for your radius, most likely it means you got the answer right. Okay, but it's possible that your answer can be pretty ugly and it's still correct, but I will just double check. Alright, so that's all for today. So hopefully you've understood most of these things that I explained today. And for those of you that need to go over completing the square, I would strongly recommend going through it because it's very important for these kind of questions. Okay, so that's all for today. See you next time.